Good evening again, everybody, and welcome to this Westminster Together event. Thank you all for being here, especially for coming on such a cold night. So again, thank you for being here. My name is Stuart Love. I'm the Council's Chief Executive. Just a couple of points of housekeeping before we start. There is no fire alarm plan, so if there is an alarm, the exit is over there and behind us. Please just follow the signs, and there will be people in the room to instruct you where to go. The toilets are behind me, off to the right-hand side, and there are refreshments at the back of the room that will be available throughout the evening. We're shortly going to hear from the Cabinet, who will introduce themselves, and then the Leader of the Council will say some words by way of introduction, and then we'll go straight into the question and answer. So with that, I'm going to start by asking Councillor Begum to introduce herself.
Hello. Oh. Hi everyone, my name's Lisa Begum. I'm Councillor for Pimlico South and Cabinet Member for Housing Services.
Councillor Jude.
Evening, I'm Councillor Ryan Jude, Cabinet Member for Climate, Ecology and Culture, which includes parks, libraries, archives and various other things.
Councillor Noble.
Hi everyone, my name is Matt Noble. I'm Councillor for Church Street Ward and I am the Cabinet Member for Regeneration and Renters, so that means the Council's own home building programme and then tenants who live in the private rented sector.
Thank you. Councillor Butler-Thalassis.
Hello. My name is Nafska Butler-Thalassis. I am the councillor for one of the councillors for Maida Vale, and I'm Cabinet Member for Adult Social Care, Public Health and the Voluntary Sector.
Thank you. Councillor de Moldenberg.
Hello, my name's Paul de Moldenberg. I'm a councillor for Hyde Park Ward and I'm the Cabinet Member for City Management and Air Quality, and that encompasses things like refuse collection, parking, e-bikes and toilets.
Councillor Barraclough.
Hi, Jeff Barraclough, Councillor for Maida Vale, and I'm responsible for planning and economic development.
Councillor Sanquest.
Hi, my name is Cara Sanquest. I am Councillor for Queen's Park Ward and Cabinet Member for Communities.
Thank you. Councillor Boothroyd.
Thank you. I'm David Boothroyd. I'm Cabinet Member for Finance and Council Reform, so I make sure that everything gets paid for.
Councillor Less.
Aisha Less, and I'm a councillor in Church Street, also Deputy Leader and Cabinet Member for Children and Public Protection.
Thank you. Just before I go to the Leader of the Council, have I got all Cabinet members? This could be very career limiting if I haven't. Okay, good. Councillor Hugg.
Thanks very much, everyone. I'm Councillor Adam Hugg. I'm the Leader of the Council and a Councillor for Westbourne Ward. I don't want to take too long because the point of this meeting is to hear your questions and do our best to try and answer them. But I want to echo Stuart's words for you guys braving the cold, for those of you who are here, and for choosing me as, and the team as tonight's viewing if you're watching online. So thank you very much for that. I don't want to run through everything the council is doing right now, but I just want to say, obviously, we know on this cold night we are still in a cost of living crisis, and we, as a council, are doing whatever we can to help. We've got almost 9,000 households in the borough who are in receipt of universal credit. We've got a quarter of our children living in poverty, and one of the highest rates of overall poverty in London when you're factoring in housing costs. So there are some huge challenges that exist in our borough alongside the real affluence, living cheap by jail. And we want to make sure that whatever we're doing as a council addresses not only keeping the city a great, exciting place to live with well-run services, but it's also tackling some of those really entrenched challenges. So I'm delighted we are continuing with our Winter in the City programme. I'm delighted that we're continuing local investment into our cost of living programmes, whether that's supporting food banks, providing direct funding to households most in need, providing debt and other advice to support people in these times of need. On the streets around you in this part of Westminster, one of the things you notice most acutely is the issues of rough sleeping or street homelessness. That is one facet of a bigger homelessness crisis that our city is facing, where we are desperately trying to deal with people who are being made homeless from the private rented sector and having to provide temporary accommodation and other support. That is one of the biggest challenges the council is facing right now, because we want to make sure that those people are put in homes that are decent, and wherever possible keeping their connections to the local area and their support networks. But it's a really challenging time for us and councils across London and to a certain extent across the country. So we're working to massively increase our acquisitions of buying of new homes for temporary accommodation, as well as building more council homes for the future as part of our own building schemes. We're also putting more investment into what we're doing to tackle rough sleeping around us by increasing the budget locally, and obviously we've had some extra support from the government since the budget to help tackle that, because we know times on the street are tough, and it's wanting to make sure that we've got the right support services alongside making sure that we are working with the police and others on tackling any issues of ASB and others that may surround the issues on our street. Sometimes they are different but overlapping, but we want to make sure that we're doing both. In terms of other things that we're obviously just part of that work, we're adding an additional 150 winter bed spaces that have been provided from the end of October, and we brought that work forward to make sure that if people want to get off the streets, they've got a pathway to do it. In terms of other things that will be going on, obviously many of you will have heard me and Jeff at previous events like this talk about the exciting plans we had for Oxford Street. Obviously there was a slight challenging period in September when the Mayor of London announced his plans for doing something slightly different on Oxford Street in terms of plans for reintroducing some form of pedestrianisation. We have obviously been very clear as a council about our concerns about the in-principle changes that have been proposed by the Mayor. I don't have much more to tell you today in terms of where discussions are, but we have made very clear about the practical challenges that we feel those proposals would place, and we're wanting to make sure that residents' concerns are safeguarded in whatever comes for the future. And obviously, hopefully at a future event like this, we'll be able to give you more detail about what actually the situation is. So that's a challenge, but it's also an opportunity, because obviously, bluntly, if we're not going to be having to invest money in redeveloping Oxford Street ourselves, we'll be looking to reallocate some of that funding to help further investment across Westminster. One of the things we're investing in across Westminster at the moment is rolling out our programme of community hubs, working to try and bring council services operating better locally alongside the voluntary sector, operating in a place-based way to try and help local communities. Obviously, we're also looking at developing our family hubs, which are doing a similar process but within children. So we've got some exciting things happening on family hubs in Queen's Park, but in terms of the community hubs, one of the things you will have noticed if you've been to Charing Cross or Victoria Libraries recently is the new mini hubs that are trying to bring new activity into underused spaces in our libraries. One of the things that we're launching that Jeff can talk about if necessary is the Community Planning Advice Service, which we'll be piloting early next year to assist residents and community groups with some of the more complex planning proposals that we're facing as a city. You will also have heard me talk about our plans for CCTV, which are now underway and being rolled out across the city, and we're expecting to have at least 77 cameras operational by the end of the year, and we're already beginning to see results in terms of helping assist the police by identifying issues of drug dealing, shoplifting and other violent crime in and around the Victoria area, and many other things across the city. So I won't keep you with any more of your time, but just give you a brief flavour of some of the things that we're thinking about at the moment. But the key thing is to hear what you're thinking about. So now over to you guys.
Thank you very much, Adam. If the people in the room, if you could please put your hands up if you want to ask a question, and when we come to you, if you could just say who you are and which part of Westminster you're from. There should be a microphone on every table. As the leaders said, we do have an online audience. They'll be submitting their questions online, and I will try to alternate between the room and those online. So if we start with people in the room, does anybody have any questions? Yes.
Hi, everybody. Just a quick question. I notice West End Ward is not being represented tonight. No councillors here from West End Ward. And we need the same kind of projects and the ASB and everything else that we're talking about, including the libraries, to be reflective on the area that we are being overlooked. Thank you.
I think probably that's a question for the leader because it's fairly all-encompassing.
Sure. I mean, just to be clear, the reason that no one from the West End is speaking here tonight is because there aren't any ones currently in the cabinet. However, on the Labour side, Councillor Fisher is a scrutiny committee chair. And plays an important role in planning too. Councillor Lilly has just been appointed to the Deputy Cabinet as well to be supporting Councillor Barraclough in his work. So they are doing many active things to support the council. In terms of what we're doing in and around the West End, I mean, obviously one of the things I talked about was the deployment of the CCTV programme. There are, I think, 8 new cameras in the West End. Mark will correct me if I'm wrong, there's a number that are being rolled out as part of our scheme to provide support to community safety in areas of the West End where our residents are feeling the most pressured. Sorry, in the West End, yeah. Well, we can come back to you after here, but there's a number of deployments, I believe, within certainly within Soho, and I thought that Fitzroy as well. But we're looking at sites across the wider West End with a community focus, and then we're looking. There'll be a further announcement in the spring on some further changes on that. Obviously, as I said about the mini hub, not directly in West End Wall, but Charing Cross Library is obviously not too far away, so that's opening up opportunities for people who are in around the wider West End and St James's, and obviously there's a whole load of activities that we've been providing through our services. So I think the key thing is we can talk to people about what's being done there. So one of the key things that recently opened, as you'll be aware, is the new Soho Estate Office, which is obviously something was closed a couple of years ago as part of the closure of the estate offices. So that is a new thing right in the heart of the West End that was opened in September. So I wouldn't say it's fair that we're doing nothing. I'd literally point to that and say, sure, thank you. Thank you for that. Okay, Councillor Sanquist, did you say you had something you wanted to come?
Sorry, it was just that we couldn't hear because the microphone.
Oh, right.
But maybe as I have the microphone, I can just talk a bit about the community hub in Charing Cross. It's not in West End Ward, but it's obviously right next to it, and we've got a really great programme there. Tuesdays, Fridays, and Saturdays. There's activities that are all free. Some of them are delivered by community organisations. There's an open mic night. There is support for people with, there's breakdancing classes. There is a sip and chat community coffee afternoon. And there's different support drop-ins with council services. So we hope that that's a useful service for West End residents. And yeah, really grateful for your feedback if you drop in and there are other things that you'd like to see there.
Thank you. We have a question at this table.
Hello, my name's Michael Brown. I live in the Queen's Park ward. My question, Councillor Hugg, is at lunchtime today I saw a national news report on the TV concerning the housing estate in Vauxhall Bridge Road and Damp. And it was an appalling report. It was horrendous what the residents there are having to go through. There's a number of reasons that happens, but also the repairs for your housing is in an atrocious condition. Now, bearing all of this in mind, and also bearing in mind the fact that you are at present undergoing a housing regulator inspection, and part of that inspection will incorporate health and safety issues, which you quite clearly will be failing on that, amongst many other issues which I've already taken up with your housing department. How confident are you and the council, sir, on receiving a reasonable, I'm not going to say a high grading, because personally speaking, you certainly won't be receiving a 1. You may be lucky to get a 2. I personally believe you're looking at a grading.
Thank you. I think you've had, your question is in there somewhere.
So how confident are you in receiving a favourable gradings from the housing regulator?
I think it would be a fool's game to predict the outcome of the housing regulator. What I would note is that every other local authority in London who has been examined so far has received either a grade 3 or a grade 4, recognising the fundamental challenges that facing housing departments across London, but also across the country. So that's the backdrop to where the regulator is at the moment. I'm not going to prejudge that. What I would say is that there has been an awful lot of work being done to try and turn around a housing system that wasn't fit for purpose. We have been very clear, there's a whole raft of things that we've been trying to do to improve the quality of repairs. We are nowhere near where we want to be yet, but we are trying to turn that around. As I've said earlier, we've tried to return estate offices to local communities so that we're actually bringing housing management closer to local people. Obviously in Queen's Park, you've had the Bruckner Street site open, and so obviously in Soho, in Vauxhall Bridge and other things. So there's a range of things that are going on. I'm confident that we have moved forward than where we were a couple of years ago. I'm very clear also that we have an awfully long way to go. In case of the particular site in Vauxhall Bridge Road that you referred to, the primary issue on that estate is the fact that the Pimlico district heating undertaking has reached the end of its working life. It's something that has not been invested in in terms of a transformation for a long time. The pipes are failing. Obviously, we're increasing the amount of reactive repairs that we're doing to that estate. I think the figures now are about 3.5 million in terms of the costs that we're paying each year to try and reactively deal with that issue, which is ultimately why work is being done on a future solution for that system, which is the primary cause of those damp issues in that particular estate. So obviously the issues in different places are different, but the particular issue there is the very complex challenge of trying to resolve that issue. So heating.
Well, I happen to know that approximately 10, 12 years ago, that system had a complete overhaul. And it had a overhaul. Yeah.
No, it had replacement boilers. What it did not have was replacement pipe work. So yes, it had. Yeah, I know you. I know you did. What it did not have was a pipework upgrade. It had 2 replacement boilers. The problem with if you replace a boiler, you are still pumping things around pipes with holes in them. The challenge is the pipes are failing, and that is the issue that needs to be addressed. So ultimately, like you, I also sat on the board of City West Homes. I'm aware of the work that they were doing at the time, but the challenge is the whole system is not where it needs to be. So that's it. I'm not convinced that by the time it closed in 2019 that was the wider view of.
I had to stand down due to expiry of my time on the board, and that was probably around 2014.
Yeah. I'm not entirely sure if there's a completely causal link, but I'm sure your advice around the board table was because I remember the fundamental point is, yes, there was a period when City West Homes worked well. They took the decision in 2016, the very fateful decision to implement the Altair report as a response to the pressures placed on them by the government's decision to cap and reduce rents, which put pressure on their income. So they tried to make changes that reduced costs. What they did was took out a whole layer of locally focused housing management that undermined it. One of the other challenges was putting on 10-year on these very long contractor relationships for some of the repairs and major works and everything else like that. That's certainly not the approach that we will be taking when we come to that. So there's a number of things that went wrong from a system that was working comparatively well. I don't think anyone who was around in 10 years ago would say City West Homes was perfect, but it was in a better place. No, exactly. But it was in a better position then. So So, possibly need to get some other residents in, but yeah.
Sorry, could you just use a microphone, please? I don't think everybody in the room can hear you. And then I am going to move us on.
I'd just like to know, what sort of impact does Westminster Community Homes have on HRA?
Reasonably limited, a limited one. Obviously, it runs a small proportion of homes. Obviously, the previous.
So can you let the leader answer the question, and then we...
So I'm happy to pass to other colleagues who will be able to assist with it. Westminster Community Homes obviously forms a very discrete function. Obviously, it took on a number of homes that were buybacks from. Well, yeah. So with the council was given money, was using money from the Affordable Housing Fund and other sources to buy homes, mostly within our properties. So in terms of, it currently manages a reasonably small portfolio of properties, but with services all provided by Westminster, and then does a small amount of development in terms of... No, so Matt, do you want...
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that Westminster Community Homes pay for the services that are provided by Westminster Council housing officers, so it contributes to the HRA to that extent.
That's right. I just wanted to check if Councillor Bergam had anything to add.
Yeah, just going back to the PDHU, so that's a legacy problem, and the former administration didn't actually maintain the PDHU, which is why now we're in a situation where residents in Lillington and Longmore Gardens are suffering from huge leaks. And we've been working with a resident working group and going through options for the PDHU. So this is work that needs to be done, and we are working and engaging with our residents on that. And also, having been a Westminster City Council resident my entire life, I would have a difference of opinion when it comes to City West homes.
Thank you. Right, I'm going to now take a question. I'll come to you in a second, so I'm just going to take a question from our online audience. I believe this is from Wendy. The question, I think, Councillor Less, is for you initially, and it touches on something the leader mentioned earlier. Many families within Westminster are becoming increasingly concerned about safety in Westminster. Will the council be considering rolling out the CCTV cameras for local residents, especially in the Westbourne ward?
Thank you very much, Wendy, for your question. As you all know, we launched 100 cameras earlier this year. To date, by the end of the year, we will have installed 77 cameras across our city, and we are still feeding through our neighbourhood coordinators, our city inspectors, and our local police. And we're working in partnership with all those three stakeholders and residents, of course, and your ward councillors about finding locations for CCTV on your streets. This rollout is intended for our streets and for our residents, and it's not for the public realm, or, you know, because of our high streets, they already have cameras on businesses and shop fronts. So this is very much directed at our residential areas. So if you want to feed back to your ward councillors in Westbourne, who is one of your ward councillors is the leader of the council, Adam Hugg, I'm sure he will be happy to take that up with the neighbourhood coordinators and see if we can explore options on the camera front.
Just drop me or the ward colleagues in if you've got a particular site that you want to be addressed by the scheme. The neighbourhood coordinators have been reaching out to local groups about trying to identify particular sites in all of our wards where they would be most appropriate. Obviously, we have got 100 cameras initially. We'll be looking at that scheme once we've got full deployment about where we go next on that. But the key thing is identifying where you feel would be most effective. Obviously, we've just installed some in and around Warwick Crescent, or if not, they're coming very shortly. So there are a number of sites in Westbourne that are going to be covered. One on Great Western Road, I just got confirmation was going in, has been approved today. But please send in where you think would they be most helpful, and then we can look at expanding them. The other thing that is going on is that there is a piece of work to try and to rationalise and improve the CCTV situation on our housing estates as well, because those are built up over time for over a number of years and done in a number of different ways. And I think those work that Housing Department is doing alongside our public protection colleagues to try and reform and improve that system as well. So we'll be able to make some announcements about progress on that early in the new year, I think, about the next steps on that. But so we're looking to fully deliver our existing cameras, look at opportunities for where that can go further, and then looking at what we're doing on our housing estates as well.
Thank you. Question at Councillor Bithroyd's table.
Yeah, hello, my name is Asif Bagza. I've lived just off Baker Street. I think that's the West End ward for 40 plus years. Now, what I've noticed over this time is the lack of policing that has happened in recent years. And I'm only comparing it to what I've seen before. The fact that we have living on just off Baker Street, the closest police station that I have if I need to report anything is Charing Cross. I see around me, and I've seen it personally, there is, what is it? Mobile phone theft, bag snatching. There is no policeman on the streets now that you can report anything to. I have had things happen where I've had to go online to report matters. And I'm only representative of what's happening in the area. And I believe where I live is a reasonable place. So if I'm having this problem, I would imagine that further away it might even be worse. Now, nobody seems to be looking at this. What does the council intend to do?
Thank you for that question. I think I'll go to Councillor Less again.
Thank you very much for your question, sir. Sorry, I didn't quite catch where you lived. You said West End, but you mentioned Baker Street. Just off Baker, so that's possibly Marylebone Ward. Okay, so Marylebone Ward, they have one PS, which is police sergeant, 3 PCs, two PCSOs. So, I mean, I had my phone snatched right out from my hand at 8 o'clock in the summer, and I know how traumatizing that is. We are very aware of, obviously, phone theft around central London in particular, because, you know, Oxford Street and the high footfall, and there's lots of visitors around, so there is a high rise in phone theft. Police are very aware of that. We are working really well with the police in terms of trying to get more police on the streets, but if you don't report it, they can't raise it as a red flag or a hotspot area. So my advice to anyone when it is criminality is to raise it, dial 999, report it to the police. You can report it online, because only then they could extend sort of more resource to those problematic areas where you're reporting these cases. And I know that that's not probably what you want to hear, but unfortunately we are in a situation where we don't have enforcement powers, unfortunately, and the policing teams are out, they are patrolling, not as much as we'd like them to be, but like I said, if you report it, it will be raised as a hotspot area, and then police will then be able to deploy more police officers to that location at those given times. So I'm really sorry that you or your friends or family have experienced criminality like that in your local area, and we have no place for this in our city or anywhere. But unfortunately, this is the way life goes. But like I said, I have experienced firsthand how it feels, and it is very, very traumatizing.
Just to say, we are constantly making the case to the police locally and to the Mayor of London and to anyone else who would listen, obviously, for more police on the streets. We are conscious there has been a particular gap across Westminster in terms of some of the complement of the neighbourhood policing teams, which were the numbers that Aisha talked about just then. And there is a new set of PCs and PCs who are going on to the Safer Neighbourhood teams next month to help fill some of the gaps where there have been in recent months. The police suffered an enormous challenge where they were asked to had to reduce police numbers by around 20,000 about a decade ago, and even though the money under both governments has increased, the challenge of recruiting police to fill vacancies is a real problem, and that is been persistent over the last couple of years. So the police posts are currently funded, but there are gaps in terms of recruitment. So there's some work the council is looking to do to try and encourage people to consider that as an opportunity and opening up new pathways for people to join the Met. But they're making slow progress on that, but it is turning around. In terms of specific areas, Aisha's absolutely right. The recording stuff, it may not feel like the response is great at a personal level, because obviously the police may struggle to identify who caused the problem, but just building up that evidence base of where stuff is happening is absolutely crucial in terms of where the police target their resources, and particularly some of the responsive work that they're doing. One of the things that is beginning to bear fruit is the particular work that's happening in St James's and West End ward around the highest areas of robbery that you've seen. So the police have put an extra, quite a lot of additional resource into sort of two sort of particular areas in the West End where the highest number of, where on the data the numbers of robberies and phone thefts was highest, and that is beginning to catch some of the perpetrators who are doing this, which is why that evidence base is so crucial, so that they can know where to target their resource. But we're absolutely banging the drum for more resource and more resource to be in Westminster, and we'll keep doing that alongside what we're doing with our city inspectors and neighbourhood coordinators and other people in our public protection teams who are part of that evidence building work and doing some of the long-term work to try and unpick problems in local communities, and the CCTV network that we're rolling out across the city. And again, if you report these crimes, that will help our neighbourhood coordinators decide where to put the CCTV cameras, because it's going to be evidence-led in terms of what we deploy, and so that's absolutely crucial to help us build the evidence base for deploying our own CCTV.
May I just add one other point, because I didn't raise that at the outset. The fact remains that now, as a matter of course, because of the lack of police, you find cyclists and motorcycles particularly going through red lights as though they don't exist, and there's nobody to stop them. Secondly, and particularly in our area, the West End, the number of delivery drivers that congregate on streets and occupy spaces that don't belong to them, and you haven't, as an individual, you can't go up to them and tell them to go away because they threaten you. So this is just something to be aware of.
I think two things. In terms of the first things about not following the rules of the road and stuff like that, one of the challenges that councils have is they're not currently able to enforce moving traffic offences like that, and the government is looking at potential reforms that may be able to expand what we can do as a council, but obviously without treading too far into the realms of the police. But I think there is definitely more that can be done there. Obviously, in terms of the hotspots of where delivery drivers are congregating, I know my colleague, Councillors de Moldenberg and Les, pick up a lot of those issues in their postbags in terms of where those hotspots are, and we can obviously talk to the owners of the businesses and look at other actions that we can take. So I think afterwards, if one of my colleagues can get your address and your details, and you can talk to them about where precisely those delivery drivers are congregating, and we can try and have a conversation with and try and see what can be done.
Thank you. Question from the table there.
Hello, I'll try and keep this, I'll condense it as much as I can, hopefully, because I realise other people have got questions and we're running out of time. I'm very happy to say that some of my points that I've been waiting to come up, I've heard from that gentleman there, from you, from somebody back there, and it's regarding the CCTV, I can't even say it, CCTV cameras. I live in a funny little street. I live in Upper Tatchbrook Street, which is in Pimlico. It's at the back of Longmore Street, so you access me from Longmore Street. I'm next door to the hostel. No problems with the hostel. Suddenly become flats. They're actually great neighbours, got to say it. So for people saying that, I couldn't live next to nicer people, really. However, that ain't the issue. I am now, this year, I've become disabled through various things and health issues. I still have a job. I'm a key worker. My firm's been very happy. I work for TfL, the London Underground. So they've been great with me. So I understand society's changed and people have changed and they're less patient and things like this. But however, June 4th this year, I'm in my house. I'm waiting to go into hospital for yet another major operation. It's a funny little street. It's the back of Queen Mother Sports Centre, and there's very few people who kind of live there. So it becomes a bit of a rat run for people, and the friends of the people in the hostel linger there, and sometimes they're not even the friends, they're just waiting to see if they can get in there. So they stay all hours. That I can put up with. But June the 4th this year at 12:30, I was very lucky I had a friend there with me. She was looking out for me because, like I say, I was trying to get ready to go into hospital and I wasn't very mobile. Somebody came down my stairs. We have our own entrance. I'm underneath a shop on the corner. I have grills. They forced my window. They booted my grills in, and I'm laid on the settee and I couldn't move because my tumour was too big at that time. I was really struggling to get about. I'm going to try and hold it together, but they broke into my home at 12:30 in the afternoon. Now, they were shocked because my friend, thank God she's Russian, she just run into that room. She's, what are you doing? He was out that window so fast, but I refuse to be a victim in my own home as I get older and frailer. And I would love a CCTV camera there. Now you've got that list, please be on it, because it's one of those weird little streets that people pass or cut through, but you don't notice unless you live there. I don't ever want anybody to go through that, because to feel upset in your own home and not able to do anything. And I just want to put that out there, and like I say, I know society's changed, but if a camera would be in my street, honestly, it would make me feel so much better. Okay. Really, it would.
I'm really sorry for what's happened to you. I know that street well, actually. I used to live in Pimlico, but I'm sorry. I can see how traumatizing it's been for you. And I think, you know, we have people here who can take away the specific request around CCTV, but I'll just see if either Councillor Less or Councillor Hugg wishes to say something.
Yeah, I'm really sorry to hear, obviously, of your experience, and I'll take your details, and then we can perhaps follow up with your neighbourhood coordinator, who's here sitting on the table as well, and they can perhaps come and investigate the area and see what can be done.
I don't believe for 1 minute it's the hostel. I don't know who it was. I think it was opportune. But it's just the fact that it was my home and I've lived in this area since August 2004. This is shocking to me.
Of course. Yeah. I totally understand.
Personally, it really hits home. Thank you.
No, look, we just absolutely understand how awful that is. And, you know, we're not pretending that CCTV is a magic wand that we can wave to make it, but we know it makes people feel safer, and we know that the kind of cameras that we're putting now have got high quality images that are actually potentially useful to the police. So that's why we're investing in that. But I think the key thing is that these guys will take it away and look at where we're. But I know in the wider area around the sort of that sort of part of town that we're looking, there have been a number of deployments, particularly around the back of Victoria. So that's. Okay, well, thank you for coming.
Yeah, thank you. Right, I'm going to go to a question online, probably for Councillor Sandquist and Councillor Boothroyd. Shakir has asked, how long before Westminster citizens can have a unified, sophisticated citizenship and council engagement app as other places have, including student campuses?
Thank you very much for the question. We're doing a lot of different things to try and make the council more accessible, more open, more transparent. This evening we've actually launched the community charter, and the goal of that is to put resident at the heart of decision making in the council. The app that you've described sounds really interesting. I would be really grateful if you could send us the details so we can investigate if it's something that would be useful for residents. But thank you so much for the idea.
Thank you. I should also just say we've got
sorry, I might just add, one of the things that we have rolled out recently is Commonplace. So one of the things that we wanted to try to improve was how residents can have their voice heard. So Commonplace is an online platform, a website. There's also an app you can access on your phone. And now all of the council's consultations are on Commonplace. We have consultations from every department in the council, and hundreds of residents are leaving their responses, comments. There's interactive maps. You can sign up for updates so that if there's any new project in your area or close to where you live, then you can get updates on it. So that's one thing that may be a bit similar to what you're suggesting.
Also, just on a related note, I would note the work that Councillor Sandquist has been leading to reform the Report It system, which again is in terms of our digital technology that can help residents raise their concerns with their council. It's not directly related, but it's been something that we felt for a long time was underperforming, and it's now rolled out a much more accessible, usable version of that in a whole range of areas, and I think there's more to come. Is there any more exciting news on that you want to mention?
So Reported is the website where any resident this could be what you mean by a citizenship app. I'm not 100% sure, but it's for anyone who hasn't used it. It's where any resident can report an issue to the council. You get a response, and it triggers something to happen. So you can report, for example, an issue with a tree, and then the tree team from the council will go and address it. We know that it was quite difficult to use, quite clunky. So we're about halfway through revamping it. So if you report an issue to do with streets, highways, trees, then you'll be using it, or noise, then you'll be using an improved journey. And in the coming months, any issue that you report will be easier to do. If you are interested in that project, there is a working group of residents who are helping to who are helping to design it and feedback on the different elements of it as they come out. So if that's something that you'd like to get involved with, please send me or anyone else an email, and we can get you involved.
Thank you. I was just going to say to the person, sorry, I don't have a name, who's asked quite a specific and lengthy question about doorbells. We'll get a written response to you. We'll ask officers to pick that up. Do we have anybody else in the room? Yes, here we go.
I was going to ask about a question about housing, but I thought I'll ask about something completely different. And just to ask what measures are being taken to control the horrendous hazard from hire scooters and bikes.
I can see Councillor de Moldenberg chomping at the bit.
Thank you for that question. I'm surprised it took so long for it to be asked. It's a very serious issue. The e-bike explosion has been growing every month for the past 2 years. There are hundreds of thousands. In August, there were nearly 700,000 e-bike trips in Westminster alone. That was more than double the previous year. We have set up a network of 360 parking places where e-bikes and e-scooters can park. And we're doing it with the two e-bike operators. Our problem is that we have no legislation which governs the use of e-bikes. So they have carte blanche to do whatever they want anywhere in London, in fact, anywhere in the country. So we've asked the government to give us the powers to regulate e-bikes in the same way as we regulate cars. If a car's parked in the wrong place, they get a ticket. We want to be able to do that with e-bikes because there's nothing like a large fine to change irresponsible behavior. But at the moment, we are working as closely as we can with the e-bike operators to get them to improve their performance. So we've got them to employ more rangers who tidy the bays, move excess bikes from bays, particularly in the popular locations, which are generally in the West End, around Marylebone, particularly at night in Soho and Covent Garden. We have to kick them regularly because they don't do it as often and as good as we like them to do, but we are on the case and we spend an awful lot of time trying to get them to behave responsibly. I know that that's probably not the answer that will satisfy anybody, but until we get some legislation, some legal power with teeth in it, these e-bike companies can do what they like. So we are doing everything we can to control the situation.
I believe
you've got to follow.
Yeah, I'd just like to suggest that first they should ask to have a contact telephone number on every bike, so that when a bike is dumped across your doorway, you can phone them up straight away and take a picture of it, and that also there should be a suggestion. You don't need a law to say, look, your customers are causing a public hazard. If they get caught doing that, then they should be struck off your list, that you shouldn't continue to rent them bikes. And obviously, laws would help, but if they want to continue operating, you need to make it clear that that's how serious you are. Because there are people now, I've got a friend who's visually impaired, who says he has never been so unsafe ever. He cannot go out anymore.
I agree. It's particularly for people with disabilities, walking in some of the more busy areas of Westminster is very difficult. You need to have your wits about you, even if you're fully mobile. But there is an email address for Lyme, which is london-ops@li.me. Send a picture, tell them to remove the bike and to fine the rider immediately. I do that probably about 10 times a day, and I must admit I'm getting fed up of doing it. But it's the only way at the moment which we can control these irresponsible disruptors. They're making an absolute fortune. They don't want to fine their riders. Who would want to fine your customers? They don't want to do it. So that's why we have to kick them very, very hard as often as we can, and we'll continue to do that.
Thank you, Councillor de Moldenberg. I'm just going to go back to an online question here, which is something that I know is very important, not just in Westminster, but across London and the country. What immediate actions can youth clubs, parents and the community take to support Westminster's efforts in reducing youth crime? I think, Councillor Les, starting with you.
Thank you very much for your question. Yes, and it is very, very important. It's something that we, as Labour administration in Westminster, are very keen to bring back. Following the previous administration, they got rid of all the youth clubs and the youth funding kind of diminished overnight. We are working really well with our two providers at the moment. So we've got London Tigers, which will be taking up post at both the Amberley Centre in the north and the Churchill Gardens Estate Youth Club in the south. We're working with other providers such as PDT as well in the north as well around youth provision. We've got obviously the existing youth provision that we have in the north and the south. Pimlico Angels run voluntary kind of youth work in the south. Likewise in the north. I'm just switching back to south and north because I don't know where this resident currently lives, but we don't have that information. But there is a lot of work that we still need to do, and I recognise that. We are putting more funding into youth services. We want to make it better because that is where there is a need in our communities. Part of our children's sort of work and family work is about the early intervention as well. So obviously if there's a place for, you know, young people can go to, it can enrich their educational and also extracurricular activities as well. And we recognise that that is an importance for Westminster as a whole, and obviously for London wide and nationwide as well. So it is something that is very much on the top of our agenda, and we want to increase our support and resources to youth services in our city.
Thank you. Councillor Sandquist.
Yeah, just to add to that, one of the things that's in my area of responsibility is the North Paddington programme, which is a programme across the council to invest in an area which has very high levels of deprivation. And very sadly, recently in Queen's Park and in the area generally, there has been an increase in what the police refer to as gang tensions. People in the community describe that as different things, but we have had a very shocking murder of a young man, and in response to that, the council, we've had a few community meetings, really listening to youth workers, to friends and families of the victim, and different members of the community in different neighbourhood forums and the community council. And one of the things that we've heard really loud and clear is that people want there to be more coordination of different agencies. So no one organisation probably holds the answer to really cracking this issue. The council, as Aisha outlined, can do a lot, but obviously the police, the NHS, faith organisations, community organisations all have a role to play in really making sure that we can do everything we can to reduce some of the issues of youth violence in our communities. So very soon we're launching a task force which will look at what more can be done initially in the North Paddington area, but potentially there will be lessons learned from that can be applied elsewhere. That's going to be chaired not by the council, but by 3 other organisations. So by the South Kilburn Trust, who are in Brent, because we recognise that a lot of these issues cross borders, by the Avenues Youth Club in Queen's Park, and also by Georgia Gould, who is the MP for Queen's Park, Maida Vale. So we are inviting lots of different organisations, schools, NHS, police to the table over the next coming months to come up with an action plan of what more the council, but also other partners can do to really address this.
Thank you. If we can go to you, sorry, because you haven't asked a question yet. Sorry, Adam, can I just...
Thank you. My question is, how much parking space are you going to give to Uber, who sit there for hours on end, and yet we have an aging population, especially in my street, older people. When their loved ones come to visit them, they have no space to park their cars. And now coming in the next month or so, Christmas time, they'll want to see their loved ones because maybe the carer that comes from an agency might not be able to come and visit them. I just wanted to know whether you're going to increase the parking given to carers or their loved ones, you know, to come and visit. Because I think that there's residence parking, but if they live outside London or outside in another borough, they don't have space to park. But also, I noticed that the ambulance, when they come and visit older people or if they've had a nasty fall, it's a two-way street and they don't have anywhere to park because you've got all the Uber cars parked there sitting for hours on end. They're not picking up anybody. So I just wanted to know.
Thank you.
So I think, well, Paul, do you want to go first and then I can pick up on?
Sure. Yeah, the problem of Uber drivers parking in what you might call the hotspots where they hope they'll be able to pick up a fare because it's a popular location. It's a big issue, certainly in the West End, when people, certainly late in the evening when people are leaving to go home. But it's also around railway stations and anywhere where there are groups of people wanting to get from one place to another. Our parking marshals, and we've got nearly 200 parking marshals on the streets every day, looking out for exactly this. And they can't be everywhere, but what they do is move them on, and if they don't move, they get a ticket. So we are doing everything we can to enforce the parking regulations. I can assure you of that.
But do feel free to talk to officers about the particular location so we can make sure that the officers...
It's not the West End. I live in what is called Lancaster Gate.
Yeah, so I mean, the key thing is we just need to know the street. So, so I think if you pick it,
we need to know. Yes, we need.
So we can basically, and also when you're telling them if there are particular times that it's worse, we can then try and work out how to deploy the marshals there to try and go at it.
Thank you. We are reaching time. I just want to make sure we get to everybody in the room who hasn't yet asked a question. There's a gentleman over there.
Hello. As a cycle instructor, I get rather frustrated when I see the Deliveroo riders jumping red lights. I demonstrated one the other day. He gave me an Anglo-Saxon reply. And the thing is, the reason they're doing it is because they're being paid by the minute or whatever. And the same thing for e-bikes as well. You get an e-bike, the longer you're on it, the more you pay. There was a letter in the Times the other day suggesting why didn't AI was allow it, if you were standing still at traffic lights, you don't pay for it. But there's also legislation regarding Deliveroo riders, they are exploited by the companies. They're on a mostly minimum wage. They're trying to get as much money as possible, and I get annoyed. I feel very tempted to knock them off their bikes when they ride on the pavement. And I'm a cycle instructor.
I'll go to Councillor de Moldenberg again.
Yeah, this is a very, very common complaint, and quite rightly, from residents and visitors all over Westminster. And, you know, there needs to be some real action taken, both by the police but also by the companies, again, the e-bike companies, who don't really care. One of the things that I suggested to them when I met them last month was that they have a GPS system so they can track the movement of every bike that they hire. If you link that with Transport for London's traffic light data, because they know exactly when lights turn to red on every street. And I suggested to Lime that they link these two systems, and any rider on one of their bikes that goes through a red light should be banned. I think we have the technology to do this sort of thing. They certainly have the technology to assist the police when there are phone snatches, and some criminals have actually been apprehended because of the use of both the bike technology and TfL technology. So I think that, you know, these things can be deployed for the public good, and I'm looking forward to more pressure being put on the e-bike companies and the delivery companies to really improve their performance.
There's a broader point about fairness in the gig economy, because, as you said, ultimately these are deeply, while we can absolutely rightly complain about deeply frustrating behaviours of the riders, they are all, as you said, on very, very, very low wages, and there has to be a wider thing about providing greater protections for workers working in the gig economy too, and that's some of the thing that we're trying to work for at both a local and national level, to try and make those situations fairer, so that people, you know, they're looked after, and the quid pro quo is that they obey the rules of the road and don't have to rush at breakneck speeds, endangering themselves and others.
Thank you. We have now reached 8 o'clock, which is when we're due to finish. So can I just check if there's anybody else in the room who hasn't asked a question yet who would like to? Gentleman over there, and then I think that will be the last question.
Dominic Pinto, Covent Garden. Perhaps a slight digression away, but it's really more about public transport, which of course isn't a city council responsibility. But nevertheless, I think it's been a fairly recent report, possibly TfL, but on bus speeds in London are the lowest ever. And that's since the Edwardian era and the horse-drawn omnibus. And I'm a regular user of buses, particularly along the Strand. Some of the most disastrous, I think, road traffic management, which I think largely came out of the City Council, was to restrict the Strand, which means that even without roadworks, it's taking longer and longer to get along the Strand in a bus. And it's not the only place where there's a crawl going on up the Charing Cross Road, Tottenham Court Road. I mean, more often than not. It's taking me more time to go by bus within, say, a mile, 2 miles of where I live than if I'd walked it. What, if anything, is the City Council thinking, and what are they pressing TfL or even other organisations to do about removing not just Uber, but private vehicles from central London? And I speak as both a car driver, a cyclist and a walker.
It's been busy for Councillor de Moldenberg, and over to you again.
Thanks, Dominic. As a bus rider and pedestrian myself, I understand exactly what you're saying. We're working very closely with Transport for London on a number of things. Firstly, bus lanes. We are encouraging them to think about more bus lanes, and we're looking at one on with TfL on Vauxhall Bridge Road going north. We think that will improve buses like the 36, the 2, the 13 and others that are going north to south. We're also working with them on what we call pinch points. So places along the main road network where buses get caught for a variety of reasons, have to slow down, can't get past. So if we can make it easier for those pinch points to be negotiated quicker, that will help speed up buses. Everybody wants an improved bus service. The thing I would just argue as well that things are not as always good as we want, but if you stand at any bus stop where there's countdown, then the minutes you have to wait for a bus is better than anywhere else in the country. It'll say 2 minutes, 3 minutes. My experience is if it says 5 minutes for the bus that I want, I think, good heavens, that's a long time to wait. But we have a great bus service in London, really the envy of certainly anywhere in the country, if not in Europe. So it got a bit better, but it's certainly a fantastic service. And I'm certainly, as a bus user, very proud of being able to use my bus pass so effectively.
So the bus priority work that Councillor Moldenberg has been spearheading is really important, and we are absolutely focused on doing what we can as City Council in terms of particular areas. The other thing that I've been particularly wanging on about to anyone who will listen to me is around freight consolidation. Basically, at the moment, the things that are on our roads at the moment is not predominantly individual car users, certainly not during the day. It's the private hire stuff that you talked about and taxis, and it's deliveries and servicing, whether that's everything from Amazon deliveries to your household, and there's been some innovative schemes in Soho, for example, that Paul, do you want to talk about the Soho
Yes, it's very good. We're working with Amazon at the moment, and we have given them the permission to park 2 of their lorries on yellow lines, single yellow lines in Soho, so that they can park there and then deliver a van full of goods by foot in a wheeled container, so that dozens, if not more, locations get their delivery on foot rather than have a Amazon van driving through the narrow streets of Soho. If that works, and I think it is working already, then we're going to work with Amazon and other delivery organisations a lot more right across the city.
And that's the personal deliveries to the door, and again, obviously there are opportunities to replace white delivery vans with cargo bikes. We're trying to encourage that to happen. But the key thing is what we can do working with the businesses and business improvement districts, and also the GLA at a mayoral level, to try and provide opportunities for freight consolidation. To we're looking for hubs where we can get businesses to co-locate their delivery, so that you can actually rationalise the number of vans and other service vehicles that are clogging our roads, because there's a lot of them are running empty or part empty, and if we can make some real progress on that, the networks will unclog. So that's some of the things that we're trying to do. That's not going to be an overnight fix, but it's something that I'm working on and lobbying any MP or people at the GLA who will listen. Thanks.
Thank you, and thank you everyone for bearing with us as we've gone over a little bit. I know there were a couple of hands from people who already asked questions, but feel free to ask people at the table. I'm sure they'll either answer or we'll get you an answer in due course. Anybody online who asked a question that we haven't been able to get to, we will endeavour again to get written responses to you. And again, just a huge thank you to everybody for coming out, especially on such a cold night. I will just hand back to the leader to see if there's anything he wants to say by way of wrapping up.
No, thank you very much for coming along. Stay safe and warm, and if we don't see you before, I was about to say wishing you all a Merry Christmas. It may be late November, that's possibly a bit early for that, but have an enjoyable couple of weeks, and please get in touch if we can help further. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Sorry, there was actually one thing. If you haven't already got this, the Community Participation Charter, it's absolutely great, and I want to pay huge tribute to the work of the Communities team who've helped drive this forward, and all the residents in the room who have been involved in helping make this thing happen. So if you haven't picked up a copy, pick up a copy, have a look at it, and some reading for the bus home, especially if it's blocked, as Ms. Pinto has just said.